Shabbat Shalom. Lovely to see those of you who are here with us in the Beit Midrash. Lovely to welcome all of you who are praying with us from a distance. That distance may be close by. Maybe you're in Brentwood or the San Fernando Valley. Maybe you're in San Francisco or Chicago or New York. Maybe you're in Hawaii. I'm jealous. Maybe you're in Europe. Well, wherever it is you're joining us from, in this Shabbat, we welcome you with the words of the psalmist. How good, how pleasant it is for us to be together to welcome the Sabbath. For those of you here in the room, you can open up to page 10. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. שבת אחים גם יחד. שבת אחים גם יחד. The Sabbath has arrived, and so I want to invite you, in order to allow it to really arrive within. Just because the sky is dark, and just because your watch tells you it's evening time, does not mean that Shabbos has really arrived, because that's an intentional act. There are so many people who are not marking this Sabbath. They're just going about there, treating it as another day. We who have joined here together in person and on screen have chosen to set this day apart, to make it holy. And so with that in mind, I invite you just to separate for a moment. Maybe close your eyes, take notice of your breath, feel the presence of loved ones and cherished friends who are marking this moment with you. And allow these words of poetry to enter your heart and to be a guide for beginning to walk the road that leads into Shabbat. This is it. To come from the blazing sunlight into the dim quiet of our praying place. This is the great warmth and at-homeness. This is the knowledge of belonging, the loneness merging into a strong oneness. One lost drop of water finding its way into the sea. The Torah sheds a glow, gleams white and silver as we stand singing and praying, our hearts warm with peace, our spirits quiet in the quietness of Shabbat. This is the end of the week and its beginning. This is the moment of pause. the refilling of the empty vessel, the renewing of the empty spirit. If you turn to page 13, there you'll find the words of the psalmist. This particular melody, we sing the first two lines, but we sing them in opposite order. It's a little confusing. So we'll start with line 2 and then sing line 1. I invite you to join with me. Shiru el Adonai, Shiru el Adonai, Shiru el Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru el Adonai, Shiru el Adonai, Shiru el Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru el Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, Elai, Elai. That's all there is to it. Try it with me. Shiru l'Adonai, Shiru l'Adonai, Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, Shiru l'Adonai, Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. Ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, Elai, ya la 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 la, ya Elai, 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 ya Elai, Elai, Elai. We've had a little quiet time inside our souls. We've had a little time to linger in words of poetry. We've had a chance to sing one of the Psalms, actually a couple of the Psalms. Been walking our way toward our arrival at that cosmic wedding that Shabbat is supposed to represent, a marriage of our people and our God that is marked when we sing the words that are found on pages 20 and 21. L'cha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabla. Beloved, come to meet the bride we call Shabbat. Beloved, come to greet the Sabbath. I hope you'll join with me. We're going to sing verses 1 and 2, top verses on page 20, and then the top and bottom verses on page 21. So that's 1, 2, 5, and 9. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalha, 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 p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalha, 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 p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiyuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'lihila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalha, 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 p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalha, 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 p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh mikedem mesucha,
סוף מעשה ממחשבה תחילה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללה יללה יללה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללה יללה יללה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלי נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללה יללה יללה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללה יללה יללה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise and face the entrance.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם משמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמונה המסגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללה יללה יללה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללה יללה יללה, בני שבת נקבלה.
We'll remain standing and we'll flip in our Sidurim to page 28 for our call to worship, our Baruchu. And we'll join together.
Ya la 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 la.
Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. ברכו את אדוני המבורך אדוני המבורך המבורך לעולם ועד המבורך המבורך לעולם ועד.
We'll turn one page to page 31. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Together, Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Amen. At the bottom of page 33, we'll read together, which is it's a really beautiful poem. It's across from Ahavat Olam, and it's it's an interpretation of this prayer that we use as an intention before the Shema. So at the bottom of page 33, I'll invite us to read together. wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Amen.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
On page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content. Her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. The song Michamocha is a song of, it's the people Israel and also the land of Israel, in order to allow it to move from being ravished by war to a place of contentment and redemption and hope. We'll sing together Michamocha on page 40.
Michamocha Ba'elim Adonai Michamocha Nedar b'kodesh Nora Tehilo Hoseh Pele Nora Tehilo Hoseh Pele Michamocha Ba'elim Adonai Michamocha Nedar
Soon we'll turn to our supplements that we have for Hashkivenu. It's at the bottom right side of the first page. Before we sing Hashkivenu, I want to share a brief word of blessing written by a modern Irish poet and philosopher, John O'Donohue, whose work is really fascinating and beautiful. He wrote his work to bless the space between us. It's a book of blessings, and he wrote it at the very end of his life, and it was published actually posthumously. And it was published probably 15 years ago or so. And he writes, "When we arrive into the world, we enter this ancient sequence. All our beginnings happen within this continuity. Beginnings often frighten us because they seem like lonely voyages into the unknown. Yet in truth, no beginning is empty or isolated. We seem to think that beginning is setting out from a lonely point along some line of direction into the unknown. This is not the case. Shelter and energy come alive when a beginning is embraced." Hashkivenu is our prayer of shelter. It's our prayer of seeking shelter and giving shelter to those who are in need. More than ever, this prayer is important now for the American Jewish people, for the Jewish people who live in Israel, for the Palestinians who are living and suffering in Gaza, for the hostages. Shelter is an important phenomenon that we have right now, and it's important that when we sing, not only do we sing with our hearts, but also we sing with an intention to move out into the world and to make the world more just and meaningful. Hashkivenu can be found on our supplements. We'll sing together.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
Amen. Our tefillah can be found on page 46. We'll recite the first few prayers together. And following, it'll be a chance for us to recite the Amidah as are found in the pages through Osei Shalom, or it can be just an opportunity to have silent reflection or meditation, or read through some of the prayer book in English and find something that resonates with you on this special Shabbat. We'll rise in all the ways that we're able. On page 46, we'll join together.
שפתי תפתח. ופי יגיד, ופי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, אלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל, ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו נשעני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We'll continue silently and be seated when we're finished.
On page 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav means a great peace, abundant peace. So we know we're not just talking about the simplest definition of the word. Right now, with every passing Shabbat, we find ourselves asking for greater abundance in peace. And the definition continues to take on all kinds of new layers. An end to bloodshed? Oh yes. That's only one piece of it. Since we have no control over all the warring that goes on all over the world. Yes, in our people's ancient home and in Gaza, but in so many troubled corners of this world. We would wish for there to be an end to that bloodshed. But we're asking for a greater peace than that. That peace plus. Shalom Rav. Let the peace be abundant. The peace that comes with being in community during times of hardship. We are finding sustenance, strength, peace by the sacred space we can create with one another. Shalom Rav, abundant peace. We are seeking to start from within. Help me, as a troubled soul, to be able to walk alongside all of the suffering taking place in this world and somehow find balance, courage, resilience, so that I can be a part of creating Shalom Rav, abundant peace, multi-layered peace, peace that is more than just the end of the rockets flying or the bullets piercing. Yes, we want that peace very badly. And in its absence, we come to create Shabbat with one another and grant one another this gift, some of those other layers of peace that we need to make it tomorrow. Shalom Rav, abundant peace, a peace of many definitions, many forms. May it begin for each and every one of us and deepen as we immerse ourselves into this Shabbat. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael v'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav
על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם.
Shabbat Shalom. I have this memory that popped up rather recently, and it must have been a year ago. It must have been around Christmas or New Year's when I went to Factor's Deli on Beverly and Pico. Yum. I was there with a friend. I was enjoying delicious deli food. Probably pastrami on rye. That's my go-to, so I don't remember exactly what I ordered, but that was my guess. And we were at one of the booths closest to the cashier at the front. And while we were there, we noticed there was a family with many, many family members, think 10 or more, multi-generational, and they were there for a lunch. And they were all walking to the cashier after they finished their meal, and I remember, the only thing I really remember clearly is that they were bickering. They were pretty heavily arguing at each other, enough for people at other booths to look at them. And I don't exactly remember what they were bickering about. Probably politics, I don't know. But it was heated enough for me to remember, and that was compelling to me. And so the next part of the memory was magical. The argument must have subsided because this group of 10 or 12 people walked up to the cashier, and they finished paying, and as they were departing, someone in the back of this big family party turned to the cashier and asked, "Can we make a reservation?" And the employee responded, "Of course." For how many people? Oh, 10 or 12 people, after this person looked around at our family. And the employee asked, "When were you thinking?" And the family member responded, "The Saturday after Christmas next year." The Saturday after Christmas next year, 12 months later. And when I heard this, I was dumbstruck. I was baffled. First of all, not only was I perplexed about booking a restaurant recommendation 12 months in advance, but I was also perplexed because after this great deal of bickering, enough for multiple people in the restaurant to turn to them, that they wanted to spend the holidays together as a family again. And so the more I think about it, I'm actually really quite heartened. I'm heartened to know that they chose to be in relationship with one another instead of shoving each other aside in silence because they were arguing. They chose to be with each other instead of cutting each other out of their lives. This is something that I like to call heart, not hush. Heart, not hush. And given that we find ourselves, we're at the tail end of this massive amount of potentially family time or holiday time with Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, when we have time to celebrate with family, it's important to consider, what does it look like for us as Jews to gather with family in times of social or political division in our country, in our world? What is it time to gather with friends who maybe disagree with us? What does it look like to gather with those in our lives who don't exactly share the same opinions that we have? What does it look like for us to choose heart and not hush? Austrian poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "For one human being to love another That is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks, the last test and proof, the work for which all other work is but preparation. Loving other human beings in our lives can be incredibly difficult, Rilke posits. For this reason, it is all the more challenging and tremendous to choose heart, not hush, when we disagree with someone. Choosing heart, not hush, is also central to our Jewish story. In our Torah, God commands Israel to love in many different ways, including love your neighbor as yourself and love the stranger, for you were once strangers in the land of Egypt. Judaism commands that we must love our neighbors and our strangers among us. They are holy mitzvot, they are sacred commandments, and we must abide by them irrespective of our neighbors' or strangers' perspectives. It does not come easy. They are likely considered mitzvot, some of the most quoted mitzvot in all of Torah, in the first place because they were and still are a struggle to follow for us. We also learn about how to engage in heart, not hush, in our parsha this week. We're placed deep within the story of the Israelites who are enslaved in Egypt, and God promises to redeem them. Pharaoh consistently refuses to let my people go, and so God sends plagues upon the Egyptians and their land. Finally, with enough plagues, the Egyptians allowed the Israelites to be freed. All this would not have happened without the incredible acts that Pharaoh's daughter enacted. Pharaoh's daughter is actually unnamed in the text. Her name is Bat Paro, meaning daughter of Pharaoh. And at the beginning of the Exodus narrative, we read that Pharaoh decrees that all the Egyptians must drown baby boys in the river Nile because Pharaoh is afraid that the Israelites will overpower him. Now, we know the story that when a certain Israelite couple, they get together, they marry, and they give birth to a beautiful baby boy. They make a wicker basket and they put this boy in it and they float it down the reeds of the Nile. Vatered bat paro lirchotz al hayoar. The daughter of Pharaoh comes down to bathe in the Nile, and she spies the basket among the reeds and sends her servant to fetch it. Pharaoh's daughter then raises him as her son. If Pharaoh has one core value here, the text is rather clear: to eradicate the Israelite population as they are being born. Philo of Alexandria, who's a Hellenistic Jewish philosopher living in Egypt about 2,000 years ago at the turn of the millennium, provides some wisdom as to why Pharaoh's daughter would do such a thing, why Pharaoh's daughter would turn against her father's one core value that we know, and why Pharaoh would let it happen. What Philo says is Pharaoh only had one child, and Pharaoh loved her very much. Pharaoh's daughter was childless, and so when she had this blessing, this incredible opportunity to become an adoptive mother, Pharaoh chose heart, not hush. Out of the deep love of Pharaoh's heart, despite his core value of wanting to rid all Israelites from his land, Pharaoh does not stop his daughter in saving this Israelite boy. Pharaoh does not excommunicate his daughter. Instead, Pharaoh continues to be in relationship with his daughter. And Philo teaches that not only does Judaism command us to love strangers and love our neighbors, but in this story, we're also commanded to love those closest to us, even at the sacrifice of our closest values. Heart, not hush, is incredibly difficult. Theoretically, to set aside one's value for the sake of being in relationship with another could arguably be at least ill-advised and at most fundamentally wrong in our current social milieu. In practice, heart, not hush, may feel impossible. Many of you have expressed to me that you have a child or a parent or a sibling or a friend who holds a perspective about Israel or about Gaza or about anti-Semitism with which you deeply disagree. More broadly, I have also heard that being on speaking terms with a member of your family is not always a given. Sometimes it can be easier to remain in the status quo, silent, hush. Contemporary American author and educator Bell Hooks writes on how love, when done correctly, has the power to break down these binaries that exist in our society. She writes in her work All About Love, if I were really asked to define myself, I wouldn't start with race. I wouldn't start with blackness. I wouldn't start with gender. I wouldn't start with feminism. I would start with stripping down to what fundamentally informs my life, which is that I'm a seeker on the path about love. If love is really the active practice, it requires the notion of being a lover, of being in love with the universe and all who are in it. To commit to love is to fundamentally commit to a life beyond dualism. That's why love is so sacred in a culture of domination, because it simply begins to erode your dualisms. Dualisms of black and white, male and female, right and wrong. To love those closest to us can be challenging. I believe that we must open ourselves to even the remote possibility of transcending the dualism of right and wrong here. And this can have serious repercussions. But to love those closest to us, to choose heart, not hush, can allow us to live more fully and more meaningfully in a world ever so fragmented. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, O God, God of our ancestors, may we, the trepidatious and the wavering, take up the responsibility of connecting with those in our lives, choosing heart over hush, so that we will keep coming back to them and they will keep coming back to us. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Amen. One of the ways in which we can practice this idea of heart, not hush, is to consider that every single one of us, no matter our beliefs, no matter our perspectives, every single one of us is a human being. And human beings, we know all too well that we are mortal, that we can get sick, that we can feel pain, and that we can get hurt. So when we recite Mishaberach Lecholim, which can be found on page 253 in our Sidurim, it's an opportunity for us to bring to mind those in our lives, those close to home, those far from home, those who are struggling. And when we call to mind these loved ones, it's also an opportunity to remember that after Shabbat ends tomorrow night, or tomorrow if you want, to reach out to them and to ask how you can be of support, how you can give a meal, how you can give them what they need. So if you're thinking about someone, I'll invite you to bring them to mind and share their name with us as a community, either in your heart or out loud as our eyes meet. page 253.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
A refuah shlema, a full and speedy recovery to all who are in need of healing. We'll all say together,
Amen.
Amen. Our concluding service, Aleinu, begins on page 282. I'll invite us to rise as we're able, and we'll join together.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לבני מלך מלאכי המלאכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 287.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד.
Shalom Rav. That greater abundant peace that we seek includes our hunger to invest more deeply in the strained relationships in our lives, to look for peace in those places where we are finding it absent, not peace that looks like hush, peace that looks like shalem, shlemut, wholeness, completeness. A part for us of seeking that is allowing memory to fill the great holes in our hearts. And so in preparation for citing Kaddish on this Shabbat evening, I invite you to turn to page 292 where we'll share some words before joining together in our mourner's prayer. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear, but if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction he learned the law of God. And in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as in their higher moments they themselves wished to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding blessing. As we prepare to recite the Kaddish prayer this evening, we remember especially Erwin Barnett, Marilyn Bergman, Julia Breen Miller, Marion Kaplan, Leonard Castro, Alexander Cohen, Michael Davidson, Ralph Davis, Peter Davis, Lanny Ewell, Ernest Flesh, Leonard Freeman, Debbie Friedman, Dorothy Gock, Betty Goldenring, Paul Green, Louise Gubin, Sidney E. Harris, Elizabeth Hirschberg, Samuel Cohn, Marion Koplov, Nathan Levy, Milton Lewis, Jonathan Losk, Babette Frank Maccabee, Stanley Mandel, Irving Martin, James Maslin, Ed Meltzer, William Myers, Sylvia Nissenson, Abraham Rossman, Barry Rubens, Ruth C. Seltzer, Don Shagrin, Judy Sherman, Audrey Pon Scholl, Betty Siegel, Ned Silverman, Nancy Stern Warner, Elvin Talbot, Julie Taylor Peters, Amy Tyre Vigil, Lee Warner. Are there other names we should include? If so, please speak those names aloud. We think of these who have been named on this Shabbat, as well as those who we name in our hearts. We think as well of those who have perished in an effort to protect us and to protect our people, and also, of course, those who are perishing as innocent victims of violence in Israel, in Gaza, and in too many troubled corners of this world that we must lead to peace. Holding them all close at heart, we say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous is an everlasting blessing. As together we give thanks for the blessing of life with the words of Mourner's Kaddish found on page 294. As you are able, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chilutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal, shmei kudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlam Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Ulsei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel v'imru.
Amen.
Amen. May the giver of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved among us, and let us together say,
Amen.
Amen. Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu,
יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.